exercises.
You want me to speak in a weird voice?
Because I'm totally leaving it in.
Mimo, mimo, mimo. La 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 la. Unique New York, unique New York. Amanda, I'm ready.
I'm leaving that in.
I am ready. Amanda, I was ready. All right, how are we looking on? How am I in frame?
Yes, you're in frame.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous.
How good do I look though in frame?
I mean,
don't answer that. It's fine.
I was about to say, as a member of the HR community, I'm not allowed to answer that.
I don't think you can answer it honestly.
Yeah. Who would play you in a movie, Gio?
Nicolas Cage, I hope. The best actor ever.
Like Academy Award winner Nicolas Cage?
Yes. Have you seen him in National Treasure? He is a national treasure.
He is a national treasure.
Who do you think would play me? I mean, are we asking who would accept the role or who would casting try to get to play me? Do you get the distinction?
Yeah, I do. I'm just trying to figure it out. Al Pacino. like a younger Al Pacino. Like
Amanda,
Scarface.
we have to get the compliance right.
Just solely on physical.
Oh, not on how often I yell while I'm talking?
And hold a machine gun in the building. You're right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, he did play a Cuban, so we're on track with that.
So, yeah. I mean, the similarities are endless.
Endless.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Compliance Live. I'm Amanda Hosenfeld.
And I'm Giovanni Gallo, played by Al Pacino.
Welcome, Gio. Thanks for stopping in.
I'm so glad to be here.
How's your quarantine going? Well, it's starting to lift now.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know. How is it going? I have some of my sanity left, so I feel like I'll be able to make a partial recovery. Joking aside, it's been fine. I am thankful for what I have. I think a lot of people have had it harder than I have, and my family's safe and healthy. So that's really a big part of it. Yeah. But I am looking forward to getting outside and seeing some friends.
Are you like my husband who's like, I just need a haircut? Oh my God, I just need a haircut.
No, I don't know. There's not a lot of that. I think it's just mostly people that I miss. Mm-hmm. I didn't really like going to the grocery store and Lowe's and stuff that much anyways, so it's been a nice excuse not to go.
You didn't have to do any of the to-do list.
Yeah. So that's fine. And spend a bunch of time with our kids. I think some of the fun stuff is we found some new things to do that we've been forced to get a little creative at home.
Did you learn anything new during the quarantine? Like, did you teach yourself anything new or learn a new skill or?
Okay, I thought you were asking, did I learn something about myself as I went grade
you can answer that too. You can answer that
I think I'm going to plead the fifth, and I hope my wife pleads the same about
your wife
me.
Listen to the podcast.
Oh, she does. She's a huge fan. Right. Yeah.
That's what everybody that sits in that shares that.
She's got an Amanda Hosenfeld bobblehead.
Those came out already?
They did, yeah. She got the early release of it.
We were supposed to wait till Christmas.
Okay. How about you? How's your quarantine been going?
It's good. Spent a lot of time with my daughter, or she spent a lot of time with me. My husband and I are both, coming into work. We're both essential, so we planted a garden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're growing some vegetables.
What are you growing?
I'm walking through the vegetable garden in my mind.
That's what this is. Walking in
we have 4. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, if you're not watching, I'm pointing to the table. It's pumpkins, a lot of pumpkins. We're Halloween people at my house, so there's never enough pumpkins. Watermelon, cantaloupe, squash, green beans, corn, cucumbers, asparagus, and carrots.
Is this a garden or a farm?
It's well, I have 4 4x4 boxes. So I don't have a lot of space. So we just kind of did I wasn't even sure anything would grow because I don't know that I have a green thumb or whatever. I've never tried to plant anything before. So we just kind of dug trenches and dumped all the seeds in. And then I'm reading the back of the package and it's plant 1 seed.
4 inches apart.
We totally did not do that.
That's all right. I'm sure you'll take
dump the seeds in the soil, and we're like, grow, damn it. And so hopefully they will.
Okay.
And they are. So we've got some plants. We're still waiting on a couple. But my daughter and I go out and we talk to the plants every day.
I hear that that's great for their mental health.
The plants?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sunlight, water, and verbal encouragement.
Yeah, it works. Scientific studies. We just harvested our first carrot.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I was walking up and my 2-year-old said, "Bunny." So she made maybe she saw me hopping. I don't know. Because bunnies eat carrots.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she made that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she was calling the carrot a bunny or just saying, "Oh, a bunny would like that."
Yeah.
But you got one word, so she's 2.
We were checking our garden yesterday, speaking of animals, and our neighbor's cat hunted down and murdered a squirrel right in front of us.
Cool.
Like it was like one of those epic National Geographic battles that we watched.
Circle of life, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I texted my neighbor and I was like, "R.I.P. Mr. Nutter Butter, and please don't let your cat like kiss your face or anything."
Was your daughter shocked or interested?
Oh no, she was like, "That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, Mom." And I'm like, "Yeah, it really was." And then we talked to the vegetables and then we went inside. So, I mean, I guess
that comes for entertainment during quarantine, I guess.
So today we're going to talk about this ebook that you wrote. It's called Top 10 Questions You Should Be Asking Your Hotline Provider. Why did you decide to write this ebook?
So it was a result of a lot of questions that we get and things that we talk about as we're, dealing with and talking to prospects and potential new clients about, well, what really matters? And, oh, well, I've been doing this for a long time. And, it's a mix of, we do things a little bit differently here at ComplianceLine, and in some ways a lot differently from a lot of providers. And I think that there are some people out there who are running compliance programs that either don't know that it can be done differently and better, or they think that, hey, it'd be great if I could get something better, but maybe this is just how everyone does it. And ultimately, it is meant to be a quick and easy resource for someone to learn and also engage their team in a discussion about whether they're getting the service that they need to keep their people as safe as possible. And we think that among a bunch of other things that you're doing in a compliance program, a properly run hotline can really provide a lot of benefits to help make the compliance team successful and make people safer.
So this is just like a primer for you to check your own compliance program, see if these things are being done, or if you have questions that, I don't know, are you looking for, like, I don't know, my hotline provider does or doesn't do this, kind of as you're promoting it or people are downloading it?
Yeah, so I guess it's meant to serve a couple purposes. In some ways, it's an easy way to give someone a reference material while we're talking to them about how we're different so that they can kind of look back on it. Even outside of our normal, sales and marketing discussions, we hope that this document can help some people who are not clients and maybe are never going to be clients of ours really get something better out of their hotline provider. There are a bunch of different people who can answer a phone and listen to somebody report an incident, but we believe that some of the ways that you do that can be really important, and we hope that this can help someone say, hey, I'm stuck with this vendor, or we're in the middle of a contract, but I'm going to push to check on this and see if my vendor can actually do a better job than they've been doing, because you know what, now that I think about it, that is important. And one way that you can find that out, to your point, Amanda, is just by asking your vendor, hey, do you actually do this? And we'll be going through some of those things. And some of it is also to just do a test call. I think it's a standard best practice for someone to call their own hotline, and you can disguise your voice and make up a you can put on a hat in a disguise. But
you put on a hat in a disguise to call your hotline? Yeah,
you got to get into character and act like you were really out on the shop floor and you saw this thing happen.
How many times a week do you call our hotline?
This is like 80%.
Is that why you have all of those funny hats in your office?
Yeah, like 6 to 7 hours a day I'm doing that with different costumes. No, but really it's people can call their hotline and do a test call and look out for these sort of things and think about not just your average call, but maybe your riskiest call or your most your caller with the most trepidation, how would they experience some of the things that we're talking about today? And it can illuminate how you might be able to actually serve your team better by making a few tweaks to the way that someone interacts with your hotline, or the way that hotline performs by the way they train their people and take those calls for you.
Yeah, it's a good measure of whether your system is working. If you call in and you report something intense and severe, is it getting to you in the time frame necessary? Or even a test on your hotline provider, are they being empathetic? Are they writing down the actual concern? I think that's a disguises and all. That's a great way to be able to test the quality.
Yeah, we think it's a really important thing. We even encourage people. We offer to let people do a test call to our hotline. But even just on their own, there's kind of this hard and soft way to build a stronger compliance program. You can do the hard objective stuff of look at some benchmarks. We have a benchmark report coming out and kind of see how you compare on some really clear metrics. And there's also this softer thing that you can do that sometimes when we're really busy and we're trying to implement some new software or something, we maybe tend not to do. But you can find out a lot just by doing that test call. You can find out a lot just by talking to somebody who reports when you're following up with them and say, what was your experience with when you called the hotline? Like, this was a really important issue. We would love for people to feel more comfortable talking to us through this medium, and just asking somebody what it was like. And you can really find out a lot that way. It's, kind of more like doing an ethnographic study than it is, doing a, double-blind study of the outcomes of an intervention. But you can learn a lot by just kind of watching and listening. Obviously, listening is a big part of the way we serve through this, and we encourage compliance leaders to do that same listening, with their vendor and also with the people who report.
So in this primer, you go through these top 10 questions. Where can they get the? We're going to go over it at the end, of course, but if somebody wants to download and listen through with us, where can they get this book right now?
So if you want it, the probably easiest thing is just email sales@complianceline.com and say you want it, and we'll send it to you. So we're happy to kind of do the legwork for you and just give you a chance for us to help you. But also, if you go on our website, you go to resources and look in our white papers and data sheets, you can find it there if someone wants to go dig it up themselves.
Our new website is pretty bomb. Did you design
really cool.
it?
You know what? I mean, there's really nothing that I do on my own. We have an awesome team here. Like, I definitely gave input and tried my best to contribute to it. But whether it's this document or our website, we're a whole team here, and a lot of people contributed to that, and we're happy to offer something that gives people a better look at us, and also allows some people to do some kind of self-service, and they can kind of do their own research and get to know us before we meet face-to-face or Zoom to Zoom.
Right. There's a lot of free stuff out on that website too. A lot of freebies, this ebook. Yeah. You can get all of our podcasts there. We've got great blogs, and just a shameless plug for people to go to the website and see all the neat stuff that we have out there.
Yeah, and we're really just trying to be helpful. A lot of people kind of put this behind a gate and kind of only give it to you if you're in a sales discussion or something like that. We think that if we can help some people kind of understand how to win at this compliance game, then the world's going to be a better workplace because of it. Obviously, if we can help directly by providing services, then we'd love to do that too.
All right, let's dig into these questions. The first question that you should be asking your hotline provider is, what is your average caller wait time before a caller speaks to a live operator? Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about this a little bit, because in your ebook, you've got a graphic that shows that ComplianceLine's wait time to speak to a live person averages at 9 seconds, mm-hmm. whereas some of our competitors range up to 25 seconds. Yep. Now, to the kind of math challenged like me, that's not a ton of time difference. Why does answering live within 9 seconds change the whole service experience?
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Okay, let's talk about it. I don't know what we're pausing for.
That was 9 seconds. So triple that.
Got it.
And that's going to be 27 seconds. So it doesn't sound like a lot. See that? Like that dead air is very, so imagine, so 9 seconds is like 3 rings. We think that is like a very reasonable amount of time. If you call your friend and it rings, 15 times, you're like, they must be ignoring me or not have a voicemail. But 3 rings is like a normal time to get an interaction with a human person. 25 seconds is a really long time. And if that's your average, or it's 20 seconds, imagine they're on break and they're standing in the stairwell and they're trying to report this thing because they've just kind of hit their wit's end, and they're worried about retaliation. They've had this reticence to report it because they think they might get in trouble or something. If they're waiting for 25 seconds just before someone picks up, or they're going through this, hey, we really care about your report, but wait a while, we're busy with someone who's more important. It causes a bunch of things. It causes people to feel like they're not respected. You're gonna see a higher abandonment rate of people just hanging up the phone and they're saying, I'm trying to help my tribe. I'm trying to help my company and my community by reporting this thing. And if no one cares about it, then I'm not. Then it's maybe not worth me doing it. And it just kind of sends the wrong message if someone's waiting too long. That the other things that are required for that to be worth it are a good a good interview that gets good information, someone follows up on it and takes the right action. There are a bunch of things that need to happen for that call to be worth it for that reporter. And if they're waiting a long time, it just kind of sets them up for this expectation of, okay, am I calling someone who's going to interact with me and treat me like a human, or is it like I'm calling the cable company and you hear some hold music and you talk to somebody and they transfer you to somebody else and you kind of go through, you have to jump through all these hoops just to kind of get to where you need to go. Those are 2 ends of a spectrum, and the longer you wait, the more you're expecting to go into this kind of cable company type experience, which is really cold and is really not what we as ethics experts want. Someone who's helping out our goal to keep the workplace safe and to find misbehavior and to manage risk. They're helping us by reporting, and if we make them wait a long time, it's gonna eventually get to the point where it's just damaging to the culture, because people just feel like, hey, I called and I waited for a long time, and this thing happened, and this thing happened, and then nothing happened at the end. And that story, one of those, is going to make a much bigger impact as it spreads throughout your culture than the email reminders that you send around once a year, once a quarter to, hey, report this stuff to the hotline and stuff like that.
It does leave kind of a sour taste in your mouth, right? If you don't get to talk to a live person. I know this week I had to call customer service on something I purchased, of course, online during the quarantine. And I called 7 times and was hung up on 7 times before I even talked to a person. Mm-hmm. So just that awkward 9 seconds that we did at the beginning of this segment, like even that nothing was better than, a disconnect. And right. But imagining that, if I was upset or I had seen something egregious that nobody was there to kind of answer the phone and talk to me about it. I think your point about culture is really spot on. It can be detrimental to how you feel about that company.
Yeah, it really can. And you see it kind of show up in a bunch of other metrics around, call abandonment rate, or how many calls you get, or, how comfortable people feel engaging with your compliance team. And we need to have the proper view of what this phone interaction is like, right? So people have a different willingness to wait or call back based on what they're doing, right? So if you imagine someone calling into their favorite radio show for sweepstakes or to get on the air, they're maybe going to wait for 10 or 15 minutes, right? They really want to talk to, insert your favorite blog host, Amanda Hosenfeld,
right?
Or podcast host. So something that someone's really excited about, they're probably going to wait, and that's fine. If you're returning something and you want to get your money back and stuff like that, maybe you're going to call back because you need to get this thing done. This hotline interaction is way on the other end of the spectrum, where someone's afraid to call. A lot of times people don't want to call, or they're willing to, but they also have a bunch of questions in the back of their head of like, is it worth it? Am I going to get in trouble? our compliance team leaders are trying to drive engagement and trying to take care of these objections that people have and this worry. And after all that you've done training and you've done communication and you put up posters and all of that, for the start of that interaction to be a long wait time, it's just you're working against yourself. And just one thing to look out for as you're asking this question to your vendor is make sure that they're actually quoting an actual wait time from when someone, from when the phone starts ringing, from when the call connects until they talk to a person.
Can we thought experiment that for a sec? So sure. Let's say I'm calling you, you're my vendor. Let's say you're a bad one.
Okay.
Not a good one. Yeah. Not a good vendor. And I say, so I'm just checking around. I'm checking to make sure that we're getting what we pay for. I don't know that somebody would say that when they call, but they say, how long does it take a live person to get on your telephone call? Can you give me an example of a bad answer?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Generally, we pick the call up within 3 rings of when it gets to an operator. So what you want to look out for there is they're kind of giving you they're not saying, our average is this, or, they're not giving you really a hard number. They're just kind of saying it's generally this. And also what they're masking is before they say it gets to an operator, someone's been waiting on that elevator hold music, or someone's been going through a call tree. Oh, thanks for calling. Press 4 for this. Okay, you press 4. How about this? Tell me this other thing. And then you get there, and then you're waiting with elevator hold music or listening to Kenny G or whatever they play on those for 45 seconds, and then it starts ringing at an operator's desk, and it rings 3 times, and they pick it up.
Got it.
So what you want to be asking about is what is the caller experience, not just when the operator picks up the phone.
Got it. So you have to ask for specifics.
Yeah.
Specifically, can you tell me how long till they speak with a live person?
Yeah, and just have a healthy dose of skepticism to kind of ask them, okay, well, when is that not true, or when is that longer, or what else might someone experience that would make it seem like a longer call? And they might say, oh, well, I guess I should tell you that there's a 20-second recording that we put ahead of your 10-second recording. Mm-hmm. And then they have to type through this call tree, and then they generally wait for 10 seconds, and then it rings 3 times.
Got it.
They probably won't tell you all that. They'll try to dance around it.
All right, so our second question that you should be asking your hotline provider is, what is your call abandonment rate? So can you specifically tell us what a call abandonment rate is and what the implications of that are?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of different ways to define this. I think it's from everything that we've seen across a bunch of different industries and call centers, if something rings for a half ring and then gets disconnected, that's not somebody saying, wow, I can't believe I had to wait so long. It rang for a quarter of a second. Mm-hmm. That's a quarter of a second. No, we're not going to do
that again?
But generally, it's, if it's a legitimate call that connects and someone hangs up before someone picks up. So I call, I'm waiting for it to ring. I could be waiting on elevator music. I could get frustrated with the phone tree and I'm typing through it, and then, I get to the wrong place, or it could just be, ringing, 25 times and then I hang up. Those are all things that would be counted as a call abandoned or an abandoned call. And generally, you don't know whether that person says, oh, hey, I was willing to wait for 15 seconds, but not 25. I'll just call back later. Or if they just say, all right, well, this is obviously not worth my time. I'll let somebody else deal with it when it becomes a headline or it becomes a lawsuit. So an abandoned call is someone who calls in, they, for whatever reason, don't end up talking to somebody, and they hang up the phone without engaging in the call process.
Got it. So a call abandonment doesn't count if we take them through part of the interview process and they run out of time and they don't want to continue the call. Yeah,
that doesn't count as an abandoned call. That's something that you can look at and report on. But generally, as a measure of the call center or the vendor performance, if we're 15 minutes into a call that was supposed to take 17 minutes and someone loses reception, we didn't do a bad job on that. Talk to your telecom provider.
Right. Why is call abandonment rate important? For our clients, why would they want to see this metric? Why would they want to say, oh, ComplianceLine has an under 1% call abandonment rate? Why is that a good thing?
So you want to look at the metric because the whole, unless you're one of these like very kind of check the box focused compliance programs, your hotline is not just set up so that you have a number on the wall and you can say that you have a hotline. Your hotline's there so that you can find out information about people misbehaving, people, causing risks for the company, or people getting harmed or having potential of it. So you want to be looking at call abandonment rate because mainly two big issues. Sometimes if someone hangs up without talking to somebody, then they're never going to call back again. And sometimes even if someone calls, they hang up because it took too long and then they call back later, that's still going to cause harm to your culture and harm to people's trust in your compliance program by saying, hey, yeah, I know I really felt like I needed to report that this time and I was willing to call back, but I really shouldn't have to call twice to report something, and I'm probably not going to do it again.
And think about all those people that lose their nerve, that call that one time and nobody answers, or they're stuck in the phone tree and they're like, well, they second guess even the decision to call in the first place.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people like that. I was doing an interview for the ethics experts and talking about how there's a big hurdle that we have to get over, not just to like get engagement and have people engage with our compliance program, but this kind of psychological or empathy hurdle to realize that this stuff that we swim in all the time, regulations and compliance and policies and measuring our compliance program, the whole employee base doesn't wake up reading FCPA blogs and checking the new regulations. They're trying to do a different job, and we need to kind of push to understand how big of a jump it can be for somebody to think about it, remember the hotline, feel comfortable to do it, and really when it's that big of a jump for them to engage, then it can be it can really have an outsized impact to have even a slightly bad experience for someone to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. And just a quick anecdote, I was talking to a nurse at one of our clients who had reported something, and just listening to her about like what her experience was like and things like that, and she was saying that she had come from another company that had a different hotline provider, and everyone had kept she would even suggest to a peer that she might report something in the hotline, and they said, no, don't worry about doing that. Like, no one's going to do anything with it. My friend reported and they didn't do anything. It's not worth it. And if that's shocking to you, then you may just not have a clear sense of the kind of hill that we have to climb here to get engagement. And she said that she came to the company that is now our client, and she was like, well, it's different here. I'm going to give it a try. And she had a different experience with us. But just hearing that all of your messages to, hey, call and it's okay and it's safe, we won't retaliate against you and things like that, a lot of times those are being counteracted by peers, by employees who have just had a bad experience, or just are continuing to assume that it's going to be here the way that it was somewhere else.
So the culture that the company is putting is advertising versus the culture that the company actually has are at war with each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it only takes a few of those bad experiences. Like anybody who runs a business that has a bunch of online reviews, they know that if you have a few bad reviews, then it can outweigh 5 or 15 or even more good reviews to like have some really strong complaints. Well, when that happens in your compliance program, it's going to take a lot of work to counteract that one bad story that somebody had because they waited too long. And we're just talking about averages in this report. You can venture a guess that if someone's average wait time is 20 or 25 seconds, they probably have some 90 or 120 second wait times in there. And that experience can really mess up your culture. And that one abandoned call can take a long time to recover from.
Right. What about when somebody calls and asks about their companies or their vendors rather call abandonment rate? Is it natural that it fluctuates?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the wait time when you go to check out at a store or the grocery store or order food, like that's always going to fluctuate. So there are going to be times where that number is going to go up a little bit. There are going to be times where, you know, there's nobody on a call and they just pick up right away. So that's going to fluctuate kind of throughout the day based on when somebody calls, and also probably over time as, you know, a vendor kind of changes staffing and things like that. So as you look at that number, realize that, you know, if you think that, you know, 15 or 20 seconds is like the maximum someone should wait, and your vendor has a 20-second average wait time, you should know that 50% of the calls are longer than that average.
Got it. So you just segued actually into question number 3. You said
you like how I did that?
I did. You did it. You didn't even turn your page. That's really nice. The changes in staffing could help fluctuate. So our question number 3 is, what is the average tenure of your hotline operator? So why would that? I have a couple questions about this because people are my thing. So
one at a time, man.
Right. Why would you ask this question? Why is this an important question to ask your vendor?
So, you know, compliance and ethics is closely tied to HR, and whether you're part of the broader recruiting function at your whole company or you've just brought someone onto your tight compliance team, we all know that it takes time for someone to get up to speed, right? We have training, we have onboarding, we have, you know, your kind of 90-day period or however long it is for you to get acquainted and stuff like that. Few people kind of show up for a new job on the first day and they're as good as they are 2 days after, two years after they've been there. So because of that, that ramp up period multiplied by the complexity of this job, the tenure of hotline operators is really important. So what is that complexity? We're not just taking calls that is a 2-question survey of, you know, you get it on your receipt when you leave Wendy's and it says, okay, you know, you call and they say, what location were you at? Okay, what would you rate it 1 out of 5? Okay, cool, we're done. Like that, you almost need no kind of training and onboarding time to do. Well, on a compliance hotline, we have this massive range of issues that we're taking.
Calls that could be coming in.
Yeah, and some of them are, you know, just, oh, I had a question about this policy, or I'm not sure where to get a new ID badge or whatever it is. And some are really complex cases that, you know, potentially violate 5 different industry-specific regulations that, you know, have a bunch of related incidents and a bunch of witnesses or people accused and things like that. Well, that type of call is, in some senses, the most important reason you have your hotline up, right? A really complex call is something that someone's maybe not likely to report, that you need to get the information on, that has a lot of risk in it, so you need to be able to respond quickly. So those harder calls, there's this much wider range of complexity and difficulty of calls in a compliance hotline as compared to a generic kind of answering service where a lot of people unfortunately outsource their hotline calls to. Because of that wide range and the complexity that we deal with here, you want to be you want to be dealing with someone who's taken these calls before and who has experience and who has been trained on these regulations and has heard the industry jargon so they know what someone's talking about instead of, you know, asking them to spell HIPAA or something like that. That is going to allow the call to be like a better interaction with the caller because we're kind of talking to each other instead of me being confused by what you're saying. It's going to allow better information to be taken, and ultimately it's going to make it so that your hotline vendor can do more on those calls than someone who's inexperienced. So what do I mean by that? If someone has like a 4-month average tenure or a 9-month average tenure, like you see in a lot of call centers, well, they're going to say, well, no one ever really gets up the curve enough in order to handle these really complex issues. So we have to really scope down our calls, and we're just going to ask these 4 questions. We're going to get their name and location and ask them these 4 questions because that's all our people can handle. Because in order for us to handle a complex issue and ask a bunch of follow-up questions, get a bunch of detail, we need people who have been doing this for a long time, and no one stays at the, you know, this call center illustration that we're doing. So, you know, the manager would say, no one stays long enough to get good enough to handle a complex call. So let's tell customers that we can only do really simple things for them. And then, you know, all that work is pushed off onto the investigator, the case manager, the compliance team, who, even if someone goes through the pain of reporting, they've gotten a third of the issue, and someone else has to kind of recreate that issue on the follow-up.
Right. So the book says that the average tenure of call centers is about 9 months, of call center employees is about 9 months, and that ComplianceLine's operators have an average tenure of 3 to 7 years. What are we doing differently?
How long is this podcast?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that we do differently. I was surprised when I joined the team, having been around some other call center environments before, the amount of training. We have a really wonderful training, learning, and development coordinator here. Just best trainer in the world, all of that.
That's true.
But really, let's kind of walk through the experience of an employee. It starts with our recruitment process. So we have a very thorough recruitment process. We vet people. I think really well. I think it shows in kind of how frequently people stay for a long time here. But we recruit well, and I think we look for the right things in fit, not just some call centers are just going to say, are you going to show up for work and can you breathe and speak some modicum of English? We really look for a lot more things than that. Once people get in here, then we give more training than anyone else in the industry. That training includes more live on-the-job shadowing and interaction and coaching in the first 90 to 120 days for employees. And then on an ongoing basis, we're always investing in our people, both from kind of a culture and what it's like to work here, right? Because people stay somewhere where they like to work, where they're on a team that they believe in and there's a mission that they're working toward. So from a cultural standpoint, and also from kind of a practical learning standpoint, where we help people get up the curve to be a certified compliance analyst. We give them annual training. We do a lot of coaching. We do a lot of quality control, which allows us to do that coaching in a really focused manner instead of just doing a shotgun. Hey, everyone, we're going to talk about this thing that really only 2 people need a refresh on. So those are all things. And I think that, once you get the right people in the door and then you train them properly and give them the knowledge and the conditions for success with a wonderful trainer.
Thanks, say it again.
and then while they're working, you help them get up that learning curve well and make it a place where they want to stay. Those are all things that lead to a longer tenure. And on each of those things that I just talked about, we could talk about how someone who runs a chop shop, who has a lot of high turnover, who's really trying to squeeze as much profit out of their clients, or just trying to do a call center as cheaply as possible, they're not going to do those things. They're going to, not recruit as well, not train as well, not have as good of a culture and environment, and not continually reinvest in their people. And they end up building their whole system around an assumption that we can't keep people for a long time. So we're going to do kind of, garbage quality and try to get away with it. And people are going to turn over, and we'll just try to set expectations with our clients that, hey, you don't really need a hotline. No, we shouldn't be asking an adaptive interview just like your whole investigator team does. No, we should just do this really simple thing. You don't want us really helping you that much.
On our sister podcast, The Ethics Expert, I think it was Nick who was interviewing, gosh, I can't remember who it was. It was a great interview, and they were talking about how they want a relationship with the individuals that they that are their vendors. So like they want to call in and talk to the same person.
Imagine. Crazy.
Right. They don't want somebody that, well, where's Kathy? Well, Kathy's not here anymore. And then they call the next time and we're like, well, where's Peggy? And well, Peggy's not here anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just the kind of
talk to Alan. It's his second day. He'll figure it out.
He'll get it done. I think that's a really important piece, is that we offer our agents the training and support that they need to make sure that they're successful. And with
an excellent trainer.
Again, just keep saying it again. And that they are given the opportunity that it's not to your analogy, a chop shop. It's not we want to work these people for the specific amount of time with no kind of care about whether they're satisfied with their work environment or not. We make an investment in every person that we bring in here, and it shows in that tenure.
Yeah, we really do. And some people, you end up, if you don't do this, or you're stuck, you're at a company that has been doing this kind of, 9-month turnover for a long time, it's hard to dig yourself out of it, because I imagine they're probably saying to themselves, well, what does it take to get better? We have to invest more in our people, do more training, but we're going to do that and they're going to leave in 9 months anyways. So it's hard to kind of break that cycle. And we just believe that, even if we invest 120 days of training into somebody and 3 months later they leave because, their family had to move or something like that, we're going to invest in everybody, and the people who stay are going to be able to serve our clients and hopefully stay for a really long time. And if we have a miss on some people because they have a change in life circumstances or whatever it is, it's worth investing in everybody, so that while someone's here, and hopefully, the people who end up staying for a long time, they can provide that good service, and we don't fall into that. There's this kind of vicious cycle that you fall into, that people start slipping, and then you jam some new people in to replace them, and they're not experienced, so quality goes down, and then you end up kind of resetting your expectations at that lower level. We'd rather just invest in everybody, and really try to make this a place where people can build a career here. I mean, we have people who've been doing compliance hotline services for over 10 years in a job that, like a bunch of other places, people hardly survive, a year, let alone 2 or 3. And it's because we care about our employees. We have a mission to serve our clients and help them make their world a better workplace. And we're willing to do those things to take that long-term approach so that people can build a career here, whether they stay in the same position or, move and advance into a manager position or a different department.
Right. So let's move into the 4th question. I love this. This is, I think, my favorite question. Question number 4, what is your process and current rate for quality reviews? So I want to talk about a couple of things. One of the things that I want to come back to in just a second is to talk about ComplianceLine's quality journey, because I think this has been a neat little process to watch.
Sure. But
before I get to that, I want to call special attention to the graphic on this page. So if you're not looking directly at the book, I don't know, I'm not going to hold it up to the camera, but it shows the quality rate for ComplianceLine, and then it shows a quality rate for one of our competitors as essentially a big question mark, because they don't measure quality, question mark?
So it's not there because they don't share it. Okay. And jury's out on why they don't share it. It may be that they don't measure it. It may be that they measure something that doesn't matter to their clients, which we can circle back to, or maybe that they just don't have anything to brag about, sure. I don't know if this ever happened to you, but if you come home with a bad report card, you try to kind of hide it for the weekend.
Jam that to the bottom.
Yeah, just like, I left it at school, I'll get it next week or something, so you don't get roasted all weekend. But if it's nothing to brag about, they're probably not going to talk about it. And my guess is that they may not even know, because a lot of call centers, if you look up kind of call center metrics, you're going to see a bunch of stuff that is oriented around the efficiency of the call center and the ability to maximize profit for the people who own the call center and make money off of clients. And that's going to be, how quickly do people get off calls? How long are the calls? How often does someone need to ask for help in order to complete a call? And these are all things focused at driving costs down and driving profit up. It's not quality in the sense that we see it. We're measuring the quality of the reports that we give out. Right. We're measuring the quality of the deliverable that we're delivering. And to us, quality is not a quick call. We're not just measuring, okay, cool. Hey, client, I'd love to tell you that we spent 4 minutes less on your calls this month. We're really kind of shortening these calls for you. That's not what our clients want. Our clients want, did you get all the information? Was there a good interaction? Is the information in a way that I can look at it, make sense of it, and then figure out what I need to do, reassign it, follow up on it, or whatever. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about quality. And other vendors in this industry either only look at quality that is in their own interest for their efficiency and their profits, or maybe don't look at it at all. Either way, it's not openly talked about. And the spirit of this hotline is a spirit of transparency and a spirit of kind of showing what's going on so that you can make things better. And we feel obligated as part of that to be upfront and show what our quality metrics are.
So this book says that we conduct quality on 100% of our reports that go to
quality
our
checks.
clients. Yes. That's a not a spot check. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not we'll review a third of the calls to get an average. How did we get there? So let's talk about ComplianceLine's quality journey.
Yeah, so it's an important distinction. What we've seen in standard call center quality metrics is people may sample somewhere between 1% and 5% of their calls. So that means that 95 to 99% of the interactions that callers have with that call center, no one's listening to, no one's monitoring it, no one's rating the quality on it. We do a quality check on every single report that comes through because we believe that any report could be a really important one, and just as importantly, any interaction on the phone could be a bad experience that we should stop quickly, not stop once it shows up in our 1 to 3 to 5% sample set. So it's part of the spirit that ComplianceLine was founded on back in the late 1900s.
It's weird to say.
But when we were founded, our owners had seen and our founders had seen that just sending your compliance issues to a generic call center didn't get the job done. Things got missed, things got messed up. The compliance team got buried in a bunch of extra work that the hotline could have and should have done. So they built ComplianceLine from the ground up with this understanding that a compliance call, a call to a compliance hotline, is just a different animal than the average thing that goes through an answering service of, oh, cool, let me give you an appointment for the plumbing service, or sure, why don't you tell me about the driving incident that you saw? So that full sample rate, that sampling 100% of our issues, has just been part of our culture. So let's talk about what the journey has been. Over the past 5 years especially, we really doubled down and tripled down on our investment in quality. We had always been doing full review, and as we started looking more closely at that, asking our clients what they would like us to do better or what we should be looking out for, we've added probably an extra 3 or 4 big pillars to our quality control process to evaluate more things than we were doing before. And as we do that, we measure it, we look at how we're doing, we give ourselves an honest rating, and then we find out how to push that quality measure up. So we've done, more live listens, we've done more tracking of sentiment and how the call process, how the interaction goes with callers, and added a bunch more metrics to what goes into our quality score of different things that we're measuring beyond just, did we get a report out? We were always doing more than that, but we look at, did you ask the right questions? Is the right information in the report? Can someone read the report and make sense of it, or is it riddled with a bunch of errors? And this is a really key one. Did you follow the directives properly? So because we are able to handle these more complex issues, and we're not just saying, oh, hey, that doesn't fit into one of my 5 questions that I have to ask you, so tell somebody else. We have directives or specified guidance from our clients that says, hey, if you hear about this issue, ask these other questions. Or, hey, if someone says this, make sure you tell this, report it to.
Escalate it. It's very important, right?
And all of those specific, what we call directives, those are also part of our quality check process to make sure that, anything that we should be doing for our clients is done on as many calls as possible. And, this is a, I'm glad you said journey, because this is always a journey. When, when we're at 95%, we're going to try to get to 97%, and then 99 and 99.9, and we're always going to be trying to raise that metric. And then we're always also going to be doing other things that we can to do what we've done over the past 5 years to add more things that we're looking at, add more specificity to our quality control process, because we see that as a key thing, not just for the client interaction, but for something that is really key for our employees. Employees asked us to do a better job at this, 5 years ago, because they want to know if they're doing a good job, and they care about the quality and the interaction and the information that they're getting. And imagine how frustrating it would be to be putting your heart into asking good questions and having a good interaction with the caller, and all your chop company cares about is get off the phone quickly and move on to something else. You need to be faster because we need to make more money.
Right. Did you finish that call in under 4 minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
On average.
Yeah.
We of course do metrics where we get an average call time for our agents, but that's not it's not a make or break. If you don't get your average down to 4 minutes a call, you're out of here.
Yeah,
it leads to that turnover.
And also, nobody has an upper limit. No one's going to say, hey, I saw you spend 17 minutes on a call or 28 minutes on a call. Like, explain that to me. We trust our people. We train them well. We empower them. And sometimes an issue comes in where someone's really distraught, or it's really complex, or it's hard for them to kind of get it out kind of get all the details together. And if our client needs that information, we're going to take the time to do that well.
With this question, when you ask this question to your vendor, I think it's important to be specific about what quality questions you're asking.
Yep.
So can you tell me a little bit more about your quality metrics? Specifically, what do you measure? Because I know here on our hotline, we measure quality twofold. We measure it through the call itself, the interactions and the questions, and whether the directives were followed. But then we also measure quality on the system and the report. Was the report grammatically correct and written well? Was there a story? Was there all the details that needed to be in there? And then we match those two things up. So we determine based on the report, were there questions asked and answered that weren't in the report, and were they integral to the report? So there's like lots of tiny little things that you should measure that are bigger than just the question, do you do quality reviews?
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a chance that you call up your provider. There are a bunch of people who say that they do compliance hotlines, and they just outsource it to somebody else. And you might say, and they'll try to hide that, and they'll say, oh, sure, let me go talk to our call center team or something like that. Or they'll say, oh, no, everything's done in the US. Well, it's done in the US with a third party that is not actually part of their team. Well, when you ask them what their quality is, they'll say, sure, yeah, we have 85% quality. Well, you need to ask them, how do you determine quality? Like, how do you sample it? And what are the inputs to that quality rating? Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to get an answer that says, oh, well, quality means that we got off the phone in less than 7 minutes, and and that they asked the 4 key questions, and nothing about the things that really matter of how is that interaction, like also like if
are we serving our client better?
Yeah, and also like if I'm a customer and you're running my hotline, I don't want to hear you bragging about how fast your calls are, but that's probably what is in everyone's quality metrics. So you got to dig for it and see if what your vendor thinks is high quality is what you think is high quality, or what is just high efficiency that's lining their pockets.
Question number 5 for top 10 questions that you should ask your hotline vendor. What standardized fields are collected and tracked? So I find this question really interesting. We at ComplianceLine pride ourselves on adaptivity in an interview. We don't have that standard answer these 5 questions and get them off the phone as we were just discussing. Why is some type of standardization necessary, though?
Yeah, I mean, we believe that you need both. So you need some structured fields that they're going to help you with reporting. They're going to help you with benchmarking. They're going to help you with doing triage, right? So if you have like a standardized location database like we have, then when a certain location is associated with a report, then that's going to go to the case manager for that region or something like that. Or, certain types of categories, right? You want your categories standardized, because maybe certain ones go to the legal team and certain ones go to the quality team or people in the field or whatever. So those standardized fields are going to help you with a bunch of things. In addition to it, depending on your industry and what you're trying to do, even some standardized questions around, has this happened before, or are you an employee, or did you already report this to insert name of regulatory agency? Those things can add a level of rigor and reportability to your overall, hotline and like overall compliance cases that allow you to not only comply with regulations, but also diagnose where specific problems are within your overall population and run some good analytics on it. So you should be able to do that. We do. We allow a range of standardized fields and standardized questions, and that should definitely be part of the process. It just should not be so restrictive that that's the only thing that happens. And you should never be going back to your hotline provider and saying, hey, why didn't you ask this question? And they say, oh, well, you didn't tell us to ask it. It
should be a natural part of that conversation that you're having with the caller.
Yeah, and
if it makes sense,
it shouldn't be so restricted.
Yeah, if they say, well, my boss did this, and we shouldn't have to ask, well, what is your boss? We shouldn't have to have a question blank that says, what is your boss's name? That should be a part of the conversation.
Right. So you want to be asking about those things, and you should be you should be kind of doing an audit, and this should not just happen every 3 years when your contract comes up or something, but you should be thinking, hey, how have things changed in the past 6 months, or since we launched our new strategic process or whatever, that that the old things that our hotline was doing should be changed. One big thing has changed recently. This whole have you heard about coronavirus?
Can you spell? What?
Yeah, it was just COVID-19 and all that. Well, a bunch of our clients came to us and they said, hey, we want a special directive for this. Hey, can you ask this question?
Right.
Can you, can you check on these things for us? And some of that is done in a flexible way through directives, and some of it is done through a very structured way through our customized fields and our, custom and specified questions. But your hotline vendor should be your partner in compliance, not someone who just says, hey, what have you paid me lately? If you want me to give you some service, then pay more, or, it's not in the contract, so we're not going to do it.
Right. So we're going to pause here and do the remaining 5 questions on our next episode.
No, you're going to make them wait?
I am going to make it look like a teaser.
Cliffhanger.
I might do a trailer for it, too, in a world where you only got the first 5 questions of Gio's ebook.
I should say that the most important thing, I guess we'll cover it next time.
Yeah, the most important 5 questions are coming on part 2 of these episodes.
You'll want to tune back in.
Yeah. We're actually going to film them right now, though, so I don't know if I took the mystery out of it for everybody, but
I'll go put on one of my disguises.
I don't know the answer to it, but you guys won't. Before we leave you for today, you can get a copy of this ebook if you want to be ready for the next 5 questions. You can get a copy of our ebook out on our website, ComplianceLine.com.
Yeah, look under resources, and our white papers and data sheets will have it there for you.
Yeah. Mark from accounting would like everybody to know that this podcast is sponsored by ComplianceLine. So thank you to ComplianceLine for this space for valuable compliance and ethics related content. Additionally, you can follow us out on our social media. We are on Twitter at ComplianceLive, and we are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at ComplianceLine. So check that out there. We've got valuable tips and clips and graphics for your everyday compliance needs. Also, check out the Ethics Experts. That's our sister podcast. And Nick and Gio and a couple of our other staff members, they interview ethics experts in the fields of HR, compliance, and ethics.
Yeah, and if you're listening to us on your podcast, smash that like and rating and leave us a comment and tell your friends about it.
Yeah, tell all at your next cocktail party. You'll be like, you know what podcast that I put on while I'm cooking dinner? This one.
Yeah, Compliance Live. Yeah. It's really enthralling.
Thanks, Gio, for joining us.
It's my pleasure. I can't wait to get into the next 5 questions.
It's going to be, you'll have to wait now. I'll have to schedule some more time with you.
Okay. You know what? It's worth waiting for.
I can do that. Clear in the next 5 minutes. All right. Thanks, everybody. For Compliance Live, I'm Amanda Hosenfeld.
I'm Giovanni Gallo.
And stay compliant.